Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024. And I would ask Kelly to note roll call and that Mr. Simpson is unable to join us. And I don't have any announcements unless Bill or Al do. And if not, we would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from 6:18.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. Any comments, edits, or corrections? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move to items for discussion. The first one is, I made them behave, now you guys gotta behave. Annual presentation of the status of the Village of DeForest Tax Incremental Finance Districts by Alex. I've seen this presentation and it's worth paying attention to. All right.
Let's see if I can believe I'm sharing.
And you can maybe get rid of people there. Yeah.
It's okay. I'm sure it's probably at some point going to block something. So as Jane alluded to, we had our annual joint review board meeting late in June, where we sort of talked about with the various taxing entities, the status of DeForest TIF districts. Every year, Carol has to prepare annual reports for the Department of Revenue. So we talked a little bit about those and the health of our TIDs, and we'll continue to do that tonight. Just to orient, speaking of maps, Jan was asking about if we could get a village map. This is a map of our existing TIF districts. We have 8 active TIDs. The oldest of which I believe was created in 2009. The newest was created in 2017. And I'll use my cursor because the numbers are fairly small, but just to orient everybody, down here at the southeastern corner, I guess, of the village is TID 2. TID 3 is right where my cursor is now. Those are along Highway 19 and 51. TID 4 is just north of there where Bell Labs is. TID 5 is a jump all the way up along the interstate, think where the athletic complex is. 6 is our Northern Business Park, way up here. 7 is back down to the south where Hooper is. 8 is by Fleet Farm, and 9 is just off of the Highway V interchange with the interstate.
And the borders of 9 have now changed, right?
And the borders of 9 have changed from this map. Thank you. So just before getting into the status of the various districts, I'll just do a quick little recap on tax increment financing in general. It's a tool that municipalities can use to essentially facilitate development in certain geographic areas where the thought is that it wouldn't necessarily occur otherwise. And so the graphic on your screen here is kind of the traditional graphic to explain TIF. When a district is created, it has geographic boundaries, and all the properties within that boundary, their tax base is essentially frozen at that date. And then for the remaining life of the district, the excess, the increase in property taxes or valuation of those properties above that initial frozen value is what's called the tax increment. And that is the revenue for the district for various projects. And then you can see that larger green over to the right after the district closes. The thought is that if there's a lot of development within the TID, the tax base would be greater and then distributed again among the taxing entities. Each one of these, and I know that y'all are seasoned vets here, so I'll go through this very, very quickly. Each one of these tax increment districts has to have a project plan in place, which spells out essentially all the various projects and the costs that will be potentially undertaken within the district itself. And again, the ultimate goal here with any TID is to try to basically create development where development might not have otherwise occurred. Just to set the stage for the rest of these slides. So each TIF district has its own fund, and each fund has its own separate accounting systems with revenues and expenditures. So on the revenue side of things, you can see much of that is property taxes, We also, in our forecasting, we have estimates of future property taxes and what we might anticipate development to occur. There's also state aid, revenue sharing, grants, interest income. That's all on the revenue side. On the expenditure side of things, that includes everything from putting in roadways to debt service, incentive payments, and then administrative and professional costs as well. So when we go forth and kind of look at some of these different slides, you'll see a couple different metrics, one of which is the year-end fund balance. I think that's fairly self-explanatory. That's the cumulative total in the TID fund at year end. Obviously, we want to maintain a good fund balance so that we can service our debt obligations going forward. Future costs, again, this is a projection that we have in our forecast of some of these. I put a note in here, most of these costs are within our control, so we don't necessarily have to do certain projects. So those projections can change as circumstances change as well. We're to a certain degree in control of our own destiny. Future revenues, again, we're attempting to project to the best of our abilities how development might occur going forward. And then, as I kind of alluded to, different projects we could either undertake or not undertake at various point in times. So how a district may look project out versus how a district, the health of a district at any given point in time, are kind of two different ways to look at these. So with that, we'll just dive right in. You will see in the graphs on each of these a heck of a lot of exponential growth, which is a good thing. So TID 2, as we started out on the overall map, was the southeastern corner of the village. TID 2 is nearly built out. Again, these are slightly outdated maps. So if you drive on 51, you'll see that this parcel right here is well underway with construction for DeForest Yards. Last year, between 2022 and 2023, we had another substantial jump in tax base there, mostly due to continued residential developments. Next year and the year after, we're obviously with DeForest Yards coming into play, we're expecting another potential jump there as well. One other thing not to be lost in this is that the parcel highlighted in blue here, which is a 14-acre parcel, did get an approval last year for the Homestead Edition, which is platting for additional, I want to say like 60 residential, something like that, and 2 acres of commercial as well. So really the remaining lots for development are these two just east of Meritor. Looking at the district health itself, again, as part of the DeForest Yards project, we did enter into a couple new development agreements with Cascade Development and then Sierra Cardinho, which is Youngblood Beer Company. We have passed the expenditure period deadline for this district, so no new projects can be undertaken. However, with some of those agreements, we did put in mechanisms, as you all are potentially aware of, to essentially continue some of these projects as we go forth. In particular, the US Highway 51 and Williamsburg Way interchange improvements are a big piece of that. So just taking a quick snapshot, obviously a healthy year-end fund balance, revenues exceeding expenditures by about $500,000. TID 2 clearly is going to continue to be a high-performing district with all the new development that's going on down there. Currently, our forecasts, again, with a lot of assumptions in there, anticipate that we may have the ability to close this district earlier than its anticipated close, somewhere in the vicinity of 2030. Again, that's based on projections that have some assumptions in there. TID 3, so this is catty corner to TID 2, so the northwest corner of the 19 and 51 interchange. Again, you can see continued growth in our increment in the property tax base that's in there. This is also not quite as built out as TID 2, but it's getting there. We had the FedEx distribution facility was completed in 2023 on the 11-acre parcels, on 11 acres that's highlighted there, which was combined into one parcel. The numbers on this slide don't reflect the value of that property. I think that facility valued out in 2024 at just over $12.5 million, So that'll be a nice boon to the revenue side of the equation for this district. And again, this is another one where our projections are showing the potential to potentially close this district early, potentially within the next few years here. Again, you can see some of the numbers, decent fund balance, still running in the black. The other project that I'll mention here is the gateway sign. So I think this came through last year that you all reviewed the designs for that. The Northtown Corporate Park gateway sign is going to be installed within the next month down there. So that's an exciting one that'll be in there as well. And that'll be right along 19, is that Meridian? No, that's Northtown at the intersection of Northtown and 19. Going north of there, TID 4 is where Bell Labs is. While the previous two districts that we reviewed, the expenditure deadlines have passed for both of those. TID 4 is looming. So the expenditure deadline for this will be, if I can move this here, August 16th of this year. So right around the corner. You'll note in the graph here that we did have a decrease in increment. That's largely due to a drop in the mill rate. So there's pros and cons with that. Just something to keep in mind. Oops, did not click. Couple big projects here. The gateway sign, TID 4 was a contributor to the gateway sign as well. The biggest projects obviously are the Northtown Road resurfacing and the extension of Northtown Road, which I believe is done. Yeah, I was gonna say, we completed it, it's done. Northtown Road extension is anticipated to get done this year. I believe you guys have a bid or an accepted bid?
Yes, we have an accepted bid. We're waiting on the developer to do their portion and we can get ours started. We're having a pre-construction meeting next week.
Awesome. So that obviously that'll be a huge project to complete Northtown Road. Moving on up to TID 5, you can see on the graph here, obviously a substantial jump in the tax base there. This is primarily due to the edge, which I've highlighted here in a fancy little red box. This is high graphic design here. And substantial completion of other residential and condo development in the area. So that was a huge boon to the district. Obviously, the other notable activity here was the completion of pin seekers. The revenue side, so the property tax from pin seekers was not reflected in this yet, so that'll be hitting next year, or will be showing in next year's annual report. But I do believe that in 2024, pin seekers achieved a value that was over 9.8 million. So again, another beneficial project for the district. You could see a new agreement that we did enter into was with Cobblestone Hotel, which is currently on pause, as Brandy, I think, kind of mentioned at the last meeting that we spoke at. Other than that, Bill and I continue to field different inquiries for development, and as the community continues to grow, and with a potentially looming, let's see, October of next year is the expenditure period deadline. As we've seen in other districts, when that deadline starts to, well, I'm going the wrong direction here. When that deadline starts to come in play, we could see a flurry of activity as well. So we're hoping that we can get some movement in TID 5.
Hey, Alex, the expenditure deadline for TID 5 is June of 2020.
Yeah, I jumped to the wrong slide. It's June of 2025. I went out to TID 6, I think. Thank you. The important remaining project in there is also the Innovation Drive resurfacing and reconstruction, which we've had some conversations about recently internally. Moving on to TID 6, this is our Northern Business Park. Again, a jump here where it says developed here along Highway 51 east of American Packaging Corporation. That spec building is complete. The assessed value of that, I think, was over 13.5 million. So again, some substantial projects coming in various parts of the village, particularly in our TIF districts. As you're all aware, this one under construction here is currently under construction now for another, I think, 180,000 square foot spec industrial building. That'll be a huge boon. Lake City is potentially still looking at this. That'll be another big project in the district. And then this will be essentially built out, which is fantastic, considering, you know, I guess the investments that we've put into this district already. We will be looking at, and I'll touch on this here in a little bit here, we'll be looking at a potential amendment to this district this year, which you all will get to review later in the summer as well. It has to go through a certain process with both Joint Review Board and the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that will largely be pertaining to redevelopment. So you can see some of the remaining projects here have to do with some intersection improvements, some street improvements, and then primarily acquisition for redevelopment and then business incentives for redevelopment as well. So that'll be an exciting piece that we'll be bringing back to you guys, I believe, in August for review. TID 7 is back down south where Hooper is at. The notable project for 2023 was along Bear Tree Parkway. The facility which now has the Frito-Lay signs up, which was a long time coming. That was on 16 acres. We also had another important project just to the east of that, north of Hooper, was a condo project. So 62 condos that are currently being built out there as well. Obviously, you could see this one is almost a straight line north on the revenue side of things.
Alex?
Yeah.
It would be to the right of Great Bridge Drive. There are to the east. The subdivision is Hidden Hills.
Yep.
So it's not currently platted there.
Yep. So all of this area here is being built out very, very rapidly with Meridian Homes, and that's some of that's reflected in here, but some of that will also hit in future years from the revenue side of things. So the Frito-Lay project, I believe, which is not reflected in here, had achieved a value of over 18.3 million, something like that. So that's a huge boon to the district as well. The condos and the additional revenue, or excuse me, residential will be a huge boon. We are a few years out. 2026 is the expenditure period. We've had folks from the development side of things already asking questions about different properties in this district. I'm assuming a lot of that is born with the DeForest Yards and the development to the south, just kind of kickstarting some of that. So fully anticipated as we continue to see some of the 19 and 51 area fill in, this district will be a beneficiary of that as well. Moving on to TID 8 by Fleet Farm. With the exception of an Arby's, TID 8 saw limited development last year. As you all know, we've received a proposal from a multifamily development just to the west of Fleet Farm. If that project were to come in, that would add over $50 million in tax base. So that would be a substantial boost. Currently, we have agreements with Fleet Farm and what was formerly Heritage Credit Union, which now I believe is Connexus Credit Union. And with the healthy fund balance and our annual net positive, I believe that both of those projects are really carrying the district at this point.
Sorry, what was the expenditure period?
The expenditure period is a ways out. So this is a newer district, 2032. And finally, moving on to TID number 9. Oops, back slide here. I guess the biggest piece of note for this district is the boundary amendment that we processed last year, which essentially quadrupled the amount of developable land remaining within the district. And we're already fielding inquiries for a lot of that land. So that paid dividends, I believe, immediately. I'm trying to think what were some of the notable. I believe this year Starbucks maybe and Burger King were new revenue that were reflected in this. But outside of that, I believe the development has been fairly limited. Again, the biggest piece of this was the additional lands that we're making available for this. As you also know, we've had the other multifamily proposal down here on the south part of the district come in, which If that were to come in, that would add, again, north of $50 million to the tax base of this district, which would substantially change the picture of this as well. Expenditure period for this one, again, is out in 2032. A number of different projects are planned in TID 9. Again, we're sort of in control of our own destiny on that. So we could undertake those or not undertake those as circumstances dictate. And, especially for a district that's younger, or I guess in the middle of its life like this, it's challenging to really make those projections accurately because there are so many different directions that we could take as those move forward. So I'll pause just for a second for any questions on those before just talking briefly about the proposed amendment for TID 6.
Are there questions? I was just thinking, Alex, it might be helpful just to refresh everyone's minds on how our other members of the Joint Review Board felt about these presentations. I mean, I thought it was all very positive, but let people know who are there and who had say.
Yeah, so at Joint Review Board, we have a member of the public, we have a representative from the village, we've got the taxing entities, which includes Madison Area Technical College, the school district, and the county as well. And, I think across the board, everyone is pretty impressed, I guess, with the growth that we've been experiencing. Obviously, they also benefit from that. It's not just the village who benefits from that growth. It's additional tax base for them. So when we have our TIF districts in place, they all have a strong interest in seeing those be successful. So I think that was strongly communicated. And then, just the sound fiscal management that we also have in terms of going through projects and making sure that we're accounting for everything and projecting as accurately as we can, which is a testament to both Bill and Carol for making sure that those are dialed in. I think that goes a long way too in terms of making everybody comfortable at those meetings.
It was notable to me. I think the guy was from the county. There were 2 people from the county there that day. And when his coworker said, well, maybe you can cover it. And he said, no, I just like to come to DeForest and listen because they're doing so well. And they're a good source for all of us. So it was very complimentary because he sees a lot of these.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we'll move on to the TID 6 amendment. So it's still in draft form, but tentatively we're shifting it won't be a boundary or substantial project amendment, but mostly it'll be shifting costs a little bit. And I think especially when we're nearing the end of an expenditure period deadline, which will be next year, next October, I believe, we'll be cleaning up some of the remaining projects, making sure that we have updated and accurate cost opinions of probable cost for those. So you can see we'll be removing some of our public projects in the top line item there. We will be adding a development incentive budget, and that's, again, primarily associated with the redevelopment activities which will be taking place. Admin and professional fees, we actually, most of that is borne by the fact that we adjusted some of our formulas in our forecasting. So we feel that those are more accurate projections, and then additional financing fees to take on some of those costs as well. So the overall project budget will increase, and the largest part of that increase, proposed increase, I guess, is with the development incentive side of things. And then when we get to the actual amendment, when we have a finalized draft, we'll obviously can talk through a little bit more detail. Just to talk a little bit further about the remaining projects, some improvements to Highway V and Main Street, looking at potential additional budget for site acquisition. Stevenson Street and Burton Boulevard will have some improvements as well some lighting. And then again, the development piece for redevelopment projects. So this is a little snippet, tiny little snippet, but it's a snippet nonetheless, from our general plan for redevelopment, which was approved last spring. And that's it.
Questions? Comments? Excitement?
It's exciting. It is. It looks like it's going very well.
We are absolutely a high growth community. I don't know if you wanted to share what they were saying about that new construction or any of that, but obviously we've got a lot of growth going on.
Yeah, and I think it's important to consider or keep in mind the diversity of businesses and type of construction that we have, everything from single family all the way up to industrial. And we continue to see interest in our community, both on the industrial side and on the residential side. Some of that's starting to shift from single family to multifamily. But that diversity is needed. And I'm sure depending on what the market does in regards to interest rates, that will surely shift back. We continue to have discussions, like Alex said, with developers, particularly in tax increment District 9, tax increment District 8, and try to engage developers in the newer tax increment districts that we have. It'll be important to continue to watch the numbers as the mill rate changes and the assessed values change. And we manage the tax increment districts through the end of its life. The reason why it's important because we don't want all of them to expire or to end within the same year.
Right.
There'll be an influx of revenues that we'll have to decide on how to manage that. So having them close year after year provides us a better opportunity to better manage the amounts of increments. As you can see in some of the tax increment districts, the increment is substantial. So we'll continue to watch that.
Other questions or comments? I just want to say, I mean, we make some decisions and go around and say, look what we did. But truth of the matter is the staff spend every single day making sure these all work and putting together businesses to come in. And so I commend you guys. This is big job. Congratulations. And I love it when our neighboring communities at meetings say to me, what are you guys doing? Or, well, why don't you share the wealth? I'm like, yeah, no. So good work, you guys. All right. If there's no other questions, we thank you for that. That's helpful, Alex. And I just remind people that this is also important for us to keep in mind as we're going into budget preparation. Rebecca and I have had this conversation a couple of times, and knowing that what we do in our budget impacts the revenue coming in from these TIDs. So we got to be cognizant of that. All right, I would move then to discussion regarding severe weather and flooding in the village of DeForest. Can you make it stop raining?
I had a somebody reach out to me and said that the village board needs a stop meeting until you guys get this stuff under control. So every Tuesday, blue skies finally showed up. Hopefully they're going to stick around. So June 22nd was a interesting day. We had lots of rain that day. Between the 22nd and the 23rd, we had roughly about 5.5 inches fall. And it can vary across where it was, but the areas that I'd seen, can you open up the something that said June 22nd, 23rd rain? That one. So this is from Coco Raz mapping system. The National Weather Service out of Sullivan sent me this link. And this shows home folks who measure precipitation. So typically they'll go out and measure at 7 in the morning, dump it out, and then the next day it's 7 in the morning. So the 5.4 one in Rivers Turn Place, that was over 2 days. They didn't dump it out in between. And then the one in the northern part there at 5.15 was between 2 days. So the 622 was 1.77, and then 623 they measured 3.38 inches. And I would bet almost all of that 3.38 inches fell within an hour time span or less, probably even less than that. All in all, we actually held up really well. Yes, there were flooding areas. Yes, there's some homes that had some damage to that. But if you think about our entire community and the amount of rain that fell, basically in a 3 hour, can you pull up frequency data server? So this is, when you look at this, is gonna be mind numbing, right? But if you took a 60-minute rainfall and go across to find 3 inches, we're starting at 100-year rain event to maybe 1,000-year rain event, because if it fell within 30 minutes, that 3 inches of rain is about 1,000-year rain event, right? So the likelihood of it happening in a meteorology standpoint is about 1,000 years till the next one occurs.
Be a long time between board meetings.
We won't be there. I won't. Yeah, some of you all, clean livers might both be there, but not me. So, from an engineering standpoint, that does not mean they don't base that on the occurrence, the probability. They build it based upon that could happen at any given year, right? So our stormwater basins today are built to 200-year standards. Prior to 2022, they were 100-year standards, right? Whether they're 100-year or 200-year, they've all stood up and withstood that rain event that occurred, right? Where the issue was, and it's actually designed this way, is the mechanisms underground to carry the water away, the storm sewers, are built for a 10-year rain event. They're just, there's not enough room underneath the ground, underneath the road, to put something to convey a 200, 500-year flood event, let alone the cost to do that. Just makes it not a wise move, right, from us. And so it's designed to be, when water can't go in through the system underground, it travels over land. And that's where roads come in, and the curbs are there is to help corral that and have that. But when you have an event like we had on June 22nd, all bets are off on how far it can go and where it can go, right? So I think most of the places that you look at that had issues, it comes down to the building that was built was either built too low, and or there may have been other standards in place at an earlier time than we have today, right? And that's no knock on them. That's just how they built things back in the 80s or 70s. We have different standards today to accommodate these things. And as these become more frequent, potentially we'll have to keep our eye on that. But most of the areas that we had were here, like down at Fireman's Park. There was water all the way across to the pickleball courts. The end of Dahl Drive, we had water. Water overtopped Yorktown. Excuse me. Where it leaves the high school, and then goes into Liberty Land Park. Liberty Land Park did what it's supposed to do. It is supposed to retain water and hold the water there. And it did. We have kind of a check dam or it's a weir. Perfect. It's a new word. That goes right underneath that bridge, the trail bridge, right? That kind of holds the water back and lets it filter through. We did have a tree down that was Innovation, which I think is a big component to why the water topped over Highway CV, Lake Road down by Innovation. It wasn't at the bridge, it was around just past the bridge there. But nonetheless, there was water that was cresting over that. And again, it was a lot of water that came. I mean, if you think about what goes out to the northeast is 800 acres plus of water that needs to funnel through, right? And it comes through in 2 chunks. We have the Yankee Detention Basin, which is next to the Windsor Public Services Building, the barn looking building. And that funnels down and comes through the Carroll property, basically, after it does that. And that Yankee Detention Basin, though, held up well, did what it's supposed to do. There's another ridge that is further south, though, that comes across by the high school. And that runs across, and then Jefferson, where we had flooding down there. Again, the only house that I think all those houses, I believe, had some water in their basement. I don't know that it was anything from that ditch line did not overtop any of those homes. I was probably more underground water, groundwater coming up, just the sheer volume. I mean, the other thing to keep in mind is we've had 20 some inches of rain, so we're out of drought. There's no drought now. The ground is just saturated, so it can't absorb any more water. So what's happening is it runs off the top. There's one house there that had water. I was on scene all night running around the different locations, and I was there. They built a berm around their property, and the water never crested that berm. Now, there was water between the berm and their house, but that's the 4 inches coming off of their roof line staying in their property because they built the berm, which also keeps the water in that's there, right? So it does a dual, unless you have a way to kick that out. It did reach, there's a house that's the low point just before the driveway to the parking lot at the high school. He had water up to the threshold of his garage door. That's the furthest that Greg's ever seen there. So we are looking into that, if there are other things we might be able to do there, right? So all in all, there's areas that we're looking at that, what can we do to help mitigate this? Some we might be able to do, some, it's all gonna come down to you guys and what type of dollars we want to expend. Is it worth it to put $1 million infrastructure in, or is it easier to just to buy the house and have those folks move and we don't have to deal with that flooding issue at a particular house potentially, right? I mean, there's all these things, the variables to weigh. So we're looking into that. We've started our conversations with our engineers from Veerbecker, driving them around to look at these locations. The one other, so you may be getting calls. I'm sure you all got emails about Indigo Drive. That's a wholly separate issue than all of these things as well. But again, it's things that we're looking into and taking into consideration of how best we can manage these situations going forward.
I'm trying to remember what happened at Indigo. I'm sorry.
So there was a inlet put in between two homes in 2020, I believe it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I
It
remember.
was there before, but it was set too high.
Yeah.
They lowered it down, and that should have filtered a lot of that water through. It's a compounding issue of there, with that hill that's there, it kind of goes back up. A lot of that water runs down. Can be any number of things. It was, from a grading perspective, it was graded to a point, but then when development occurs, those things maybe don't always line up. So there may have been some water that's supposed to come between houses that isn't coming between houses after development occurred. That's pushing it down. But there's not a whole lot we can do. It's on private land. You all could decide, yeah, we want to take this on as a project, and it'd be a very expensive project for us to try to do. We could work with our engineers. There are some things we can do potentially. But it's just a matter of looking at that. If you want to give us that direction, we can explore it and then see if it makes sense for us to invest dollars to fix that, or let the private homeowners handle that.
And the other piece that I think we should consider is some of the flooding issues, and I'm remembering Indigo now. I got those pictures and I remember it. But landowners will change the grading around their houses. They will fill in swales that have been put there, and grass clippings end up in the sewer, in the grate. I know that I had, all of Meadow Lane was flooded to the point where two of our neighbor guys were, my grandkids call them worker guys, I'm sorry, were walking out in the street and it was knee high. And they got rakes and they cleaned off the sewer and it all went away within 10 minutes. And so it was getting up to the garage of the one guy. But it was good they did that. But on the other hand, there's some of the same people who have dumped clippings into the swale that's behind their house. And we just can't let residents do that.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's important that residents understand you're not supposed to mow into the yard, into the street. Turn your blower on your lawnmower back in towards your yard, not out in the road. I often see it way too often. Try to stop and remind people that they should keep it, they need to keep it on their property. Because all that runs down, as you said, and we've done our best with the repeated, you guys keep meeting every other Tuesday, so it keeps raining a lot. We can't keep up. But so we're trying, you know, our guys we're behind, quite frankly, on the things that we usually do by now. We haven't even gotten to do in the summertime, just because it's been cleaning up nonstop, rain event after rain event. Just when street sweeper gets it clean or as clean as we can, it happens all over again, right? So we're kind of chasing our tail right now. We would love for it to just be sunny for about 3 weeks straight without any rain.
We'll see what we can do.
Great. So the other area is Seminole. We've had some flooding occur there and as well as Iroquois Court. So you may see some of those images from those folks there. Greg and I were out there yesterday meeting with them. We are, again, talking to their engineers at what we might be able to do in that general area. Again, some of it is the home is set a little lower than it probably should be. And then there is an outfall that is there in that ditch line on Highway V that probably would be beneficial if it could be enlarged, or even a secondary one put in place. So we're, again, talking through those things with our engineers on what can be done. There was stuff further to the west on Seminole, series of fourplexes, maybe even eights. I don't know if they're split up top or down, but that had quite a bit of water in them. Some have seen water previously. We don't have a lot of records that are kept typically of flood events. We were actually kind of incredulous at some of the reports they said, because nobody called us the night of the incident, June 22nd, from this area. But the water, you could see was pretty high on one of the windows. The sliding glass door was probably 3 feet up, and now it's a lower level, right? So the water breached, filled up in there. But there was across the street, they said it was still probably, I don't know, 1.5 feet, 2 feet deep, which is, you know, we'll have to see if there's things we can do. But again, it's the kind of the function of, we're televising the storm sewers, making sure that they're clean, they're running. Again, those systems are just overtaxed when you get that kind of precipitation in that short amount of time. As you said, once things cleared up, they drained pretty quickly, right? The other area would be Helzer. So if you recall, in 2019, we had the rapid thaw of snow overnight, and then a couple inches of rain fell throughout that morning and caused flooding. I was getting my teeth cleaned when my phone was blowing up that morning. Basically what happened there, and this is actually probably a good test, was there was a chunk of ice that blocked the inlet. So water built up, eventually topped over the road, breached, the home on the corner. They're here. They had water in. We deployed the aqua dam that night, June 22nd, there on Helzer Street, just in case. Quite frankly, with all the water that came, that was probably 6 to 8 inches. I would probably venture more on the 8 inches below topping the road. So it never got that high. That storm inlet kept up quite well, pushing it down to the river, right? So again, if I'm going to go back to 2019, I think it was a function of ice blocking it, just something we know that we need to keep an eye on. We have been since that event, where we'll go and try to keep those grates open just in case, so there's not blockages, so that when the water happens to come, it can go through there. So again, all that water that came through, it is supposed to stage there in Helzer, in Dahl Park, and then we'll stage back through the Carroll property like it did. And that you'll see that reflected in the plans, the concept plans that we have for that development area, right? So people are like, well, you're going to develop there. we can account for those things and take into account what may or may not come from there. But again, that held up remarkably well for the amount of water we had. So I was talking to Greg. I didn't know I went for a walk on Sunday, the next day. You couldn't walk through Western Green. I walked along the northern edge of Western Green. Had a lot of people looking at me weird, but I'm like, I'm not in your backyard. I know you think it's your backyard, but it's the park. But there was water all the way across most of the trail section there. And it
There were
was,
ducks out there.
huh?
There were ducks out there.
For the Dells or actual ducks?
Actually, no.
Right. So I was near Alex's house, right? And I was tromping through water there. Greg said in 2019, the river was so high, it was back up towards our bathrooms there. I guess I just blocked that memory out, I guess, from
Bill had.
brought for us.
Yeah, in the past 3 or 4 years, we've had some stormwater improvements. One being Dahl Drive. Remember that with the duplexes got flooded? Did that hold up? No?
The berm we put in on those duplexes did hold up. I don't think they got water, and I asked them because they're my neighbors-ish.
Right.
I said, did you have water in your basement? No, they didn't. But it was flooded. There was a car that was lost there. I mean, when I got the call and I left my house in the middle of the storm, I got to the end of Rosemall and Dahl there, and I couldn't go towards the middle school. I had to go
Yeah.
west and circle around. And then I was still running through 6 inches of water all the way through there. So that was one place where we had a car loss, and there was another one probably down in Yorktown. And then I guess there's some on Seminole. Again, we never got word of that the night of the storm.
I mean, it was 5 inches, and I wouldn't say an hour. Seemed like 20 minutes, which was really phenomenal. I mean, you're talking a 300 or 400 year event, in that period of time. It wasn't 5 inches over a day. So that was kind of expected, and glad they didn't get flooded. Down here, DeForest 500 block behind the apartments, they did some improvements. Did that help? Where they ran
Right. We went back there. I looked, they had some water up to that duplex there that Greg's got the cursor on.
Mhm.
They had water up to the back doors,
Yeah,
the sliding glass doors. I talked to the owner of that building. We delivered sandbags for them because they were nervous about the next rain event that occurred. I can't remember what day it was. But those inlets were all clear. He hadn't asked me if I could look at those, and they were clear. Like they were open. They would have carried the water. There was that much water, but it was not topping over on the corner of Cleveland and Holum, right? There was standing water down in Holum, down by my sister-in-law's house. She lives across from Eagle Point. She had water. There was water standing there in Holum.
and were you talking about Gilbert Bradley's house?
Correct.
He didn't get water?
He said he got water pouring in
seepage?
through the windows. He may have. I didn't see water crest the berm. So any of that water that might have gotten into his property it would have been from.
I just remember Greg and you and I standing out there, and Greg saying that they're more worried about the houses further down Jefferson, and looking at the pictures that came true. There was more, like you said, farther to the west.
Okay.
Old Indian Trail, did we give up that easement behind the Specs house? I thought they were gonna give them that land a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah, we're still working on that. It's
Oh,
not,
okay.
it's just vacant land. It's not stormwater land, but it's just vacant land that we have that I'd asked about that today. There's not much there that would really help in the situation, but
Okay. And an Indigo Trail, I went out there just to see the situation, and I was amazed there's a 4-foot drainage grate in the guy's front yard, and it was like, whoa. And the amount of water I saw, everybody saw the videos, that's a lot of water. But like I said, there was 5 inches of rain in 20 minutes. But I think it held up as best it could. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. All right, let's move on. Again, you guys worked extraordinarily well. We got good feedback on staff and spending time, and going out and staying places almost all night long. And so thank you. We appreciate that. Anything else from you, Judd? All right. Well, then, if there's no other questions. We will move forward with any administrative update. Bill Chang?
Just a few here, reminders that we're looking for, to set up budget meetings with each one of you. I think I'm missing, response from 3 of you, so if you can get that in, we're hoping to do that, next week sometime, this week or next week. Also a reminder that we have budget listening sessions coming up, July 11th at Hooper from 6 to 7:30 PM. And then July 18th at the library from 6 to 7:30 PM. I sent an email on this, as some of you will see the new website launched. Thank you to Stacy and Judd for making sure that that process went smoothly. Also note that the domain name we did change to a .gov, which provides better security features. And if you haven't visited it yet, please visit the website. We will continue to build the pages on the website now that we have the old website transferred or migrated over. And we'll continue to make use of it as best we can.
And does that change our email addresses at all?
It should not, it should all come to the same place.
Okay.
We will be addressing our emails. It will happen. We'll be looking to do that after the August 13th election, but before the November election. We got a tight window to get her done because there's some legislation that occurred that Callie has to do that allows electronic delivery of ballots or something. I don't know,
Possibly.
maybe.
Okay.
Bill,
Our-
you said there was a meeting on 7/18, but what was the one prior to that?
7-Eleven.
Hmm.
Good, thank you. Moving along, Carol, do you have anything? All right. Police Department update, Chief Olson.
Yeah, I sent all of you a couple emails here in the last few days. It's been a very, very busy last week. And then that story came out just kind of highlighting with more detail than we've provided recently about the Savage investigation. So if you get a chance to watch that, it gives quite a bit of detail to it. So on top of that, I'm happy to announce I've secured the last open vacancy. So we have 2 new police officers starting July 15th. One of them will attend the Milwaukee Area Technical College Academy, August 5th to December 13th. The other goes to Madison Area Tech, August 12th through December 13th. So they start a week apart and graduate the same day. They just did not have vacancy in Blackhawk or 2 spots in Madison. So the state reimburses the academy, they reimburse hotel upon completion. So there's really, the village isn't out any resource for that. So we're looking forward to getting them both in the door. And I'll look to bring them over to introduce them to you once they officially start. July 3rd and 4th, obviously the next day or so will be pretty busy for us in the park. But we have a good plan, emergency action plan, as well as just strategic deployment set out for staff. So we hope to see you down here.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Chief, do you have a booth at the park this year? Like you did last year?
I don't know the answer to that. It would be through the foundation, and I don't think we secured anything this year. It was.
I didn't see anything,
Admission.
but I thought maybe I missed it. Thank you.
I don't think we do.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to Judd. Do you have anything?
Just a handful of things. Guys have been busy doing the 4th of July setup. And they'll be here on July 5th, the day after, helping clean up all that fun that occurred. Thanks to those who could make it to the Dale Jenkins Park naming. That was a very moving event and very deserving, in my opinion, for Dale. Northtown Road, the resurfacing, as we touched on earlier, is done. Rigstead has been undercut, and we'll do curb and gutter next week, assuming we get weather that cooperates, and then shortly thereafter will be the paving component. We do have about 150 sandbags prepared and ready for residents if they need them. We do have the sandbag machine here, that Dane County has that we've got it, in our site. So if we need to create more, we can do that. And finally, we had received a TAP grant for the Highway V Trail project. However, the turnaround is really tight. We had to get it all accomplished by August, and that's not likely to happen with the acquisition of lands and railroad and whatnot. Madison Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO, reached out and said, hey, you probably want to apply for a carbon reduction program grant, which would help cover that trail. So I put that grant application in and we'll wait to hear back from them. So.
Thank you. All right, community development update, Alex.
Two small updates, mostly thank yous. So first is we had the analysis focus group from the housing conversations that we had had. So thank you to the folks, trustees who attended that. Our goal is to present that at the last board meeting in August. And then the other thanks is to Judd and Greg and their team over at Public Services for doing a ton of work in the alleyway, which is now complete on the south side of the library. With the benches and the planters, it looks really, really sharp. So if you haven't walked through there already, go check it out.
It is lovely. Thank you. All right. Administrative services update. Callie, do you have anything?
Nothing that, other than the absentee ballots went out last week. They've started coming back in. That's about all. We're busy sending them out as the requests come in.
All right. Thank you.
Quick question. When do the primary votes start for the absentee votes? Have they started for the primary? When do the votes start on that? For like in-person absentee?
In-person absentee. Let me get the date.
Sorry, I couldn't figure out the words there for a moment.
It will start on July 30th.
Okay,
And
thanks.
then the last day will be the 9th.
I had a conversation with Callie the other day after I read about 4 pages of legal notices from the Wisconsin Election Commission, not word for word, in the State Journal in small print. And, it's just reminded me that every day there are rule changes and changes to the process, and Callie's working really hard to keep up with them. But we need to be patient with her because there's a lot going on. So thank you. And I know. All right. Reese, do you have anything with community enrichment and recreation?
Yeah, just quick. So Trisha is shadowing the chamber this year in preparations for us to take that over next year. So she's been learning a lot, and I think also looking forward to after this weekend is over. So she can rest a little bit. And then I think I had mentioned at the last board meeting that we did get our first draft of the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. As Judd and Greg had alluded to before, we've kind of had a lot of unprecedented things come up. So our original plan was to bring that first draft in July to the Public Service Committee, but we've pushed it back to August because we want to give the committee at least 2 weeks to review that draft and for us to still get the notes back. So that's kind of where that is. It might push back our completion date of when we'll have the plan done. But again, we just want to make sure that we do this right and not rush it. And then we are going to be doing our second public input opportunity at the Family Fun Night on Tuesday, September 10th. And then when we release that first draft to the Public Service Committee, we will also put it on the Engage DeForest page and then allow for that whole period of time for the public to be able to give input on there as well. So if they can't make it to September 10th. So trying to give a lot of opportunities for the public to be involved with this process.
Because of the heavy travel season, is it possible, Callie, next week sometime for you to gather all of these dates that we start to hear and just give us an email with lots of the dates so we know about things like when the listing sessions, I know we all have them somewhere, but when those meetings are things we might want to participate in.
Yeah, and we do still have the timeline on the Engage the Forest page that will have all of these dates on there as well, but I understand there's more than just one page to look at, so.
Yeah, all right. Any other questions on the updates? If not, we'll keep moving. It is 6 PM. So we have no closed session with Committee of the Whole. And I don't know of any other business to come before this body, so I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned. We'll take 5 minutes and then start our. I will get the right agenda and we will call the meeting of the village board to order at 6:07 PM on Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024. I would ask Callie to note roll call and note that Mr. Simpson, trustee Simpson is not here. Let's do the pledge. Rebecca, let's do the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
He's here. He's gonna puzzle it in. Oh, Jim pulled in. Good for him. All right, I still want a bell that we can ring whenever he arrives. Right. All right, we'll be good. The village board will convene into closed session pursuant to section 19.85(1)(e) of the Wisconsin statutes for purposes of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session. Tonight, negotiation of the 2025-26 collective bargaining agreement with the DeForest Police Association and the Wisconsin Professional Police Association, Law Enforcement Employee Relations Division, and negotiation of an amendment to the development agreement and cost share arrangement with Cascade Development LLC. Item 5, consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move to public appearances. We've got a few. I would begin with Mark Olson. He's been here patiently for an hour, so thank you. But I'm glad you heard that presentation. Good. Pull it close to you. It's, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Mark Olson. I live at 737 Columbia Avenue in the village of DeForest. I live across the street from the North Alser Street Detention Basin. On June 22nd, we received approximately 2 3/4 inches of rain. That's according to my rain gauge, so. Detention basin partially filled with water. The water came up to here on this caution sign. After the water receded, I measured from the base of the signpost to where the water was on the sign and found out the depth of the water was 3 foot 6 inches. Then I measured from the lip of the detention basin to where the top of the water had been. And I found out that the detention basin could contain another 20 inches of water before the water would start spilling out into the north, into North Halser Street. The depth of the water at the sign would then be 5 foot 2 inches. And the top of the caution sign would be underwater by 4.5 inches. If I was standing right now, that would come about to the bridge of my nose. The water is fast moving and depending on the time of year, containing dangerous chemicals like manure, road salt, herbicides, pesticides, fertilizers, and with the runoff water from the gas station, petroleum byproducts. I believe the 3 caution signs should be moved, 2 of them up on the left and right side of the fence that's up by Halser Street, by the sidewalk there, and the other up by Dull Park, so that they can be viewed and read without a person reading them or reading the sign have to stand in water that is 5 foot 2 inches or deeper. Thank you.
Thank you. We will take note. And I appreciate that. The next is Lois Lehman. Lois, you've been with us before, but
Thank you. I'm not sure I know what to do though. Do I push this?
Already on.
It's on? Okay. Okay. Oh, thank you. All right. Oh, thank you. Lois, Lois Lehman, 212 Harbor Drive, DeForest. I was writing up my notes when I came today and I wanted to say that at 4 o'clock this afternoon, I got an email from Reese, which made me very happy and to celebrate the 4th of July, but without fireworks. She told me that the coyote hazing program that Dr. David Drake had put on YouTube is now on the website, which is really wonderful because I want, of course, safety for everyone, the coyotes, people and their pets. And like one bear whisperer said that everybody is not on the wrong end of the stick. So I wanted to start by saying that I heard about how busy Judd is, so I'm not going to push him on demanding an answer perhaps on the trail.
Message board. signage.
Thank you, message, yep. And so we'll just continue our discussion, Judd. I'm all for that. Thank you. I appreciate how busy you are. Dr. Jane Goodall is quoted as saying, every individual matters. Every individual has a role to play. Every individual makes a difference. So when I read that and I talk about it, I'm thinking about humans as well as animals. And I'm glad that we're thinking about the urban wildlife mission statement, which talks about coexistence with humans and animals. However, because I'm almost out of time, I won't be able to talk about my full statement. I did call on Monday of this last week about a shooting, and I haven't received an answer back. And I did want to say that I've had neighbors weeks ago tell me about the shooting that has occurred in Holland Fields. So I ask for an answer on that question, and I really would appreciate transparency from which I have had from the police department.
Excuse me, Lois, your 3 minutes is up. Thank you.
thank you, Lois. I don't know what the shooting was, but we will ask later. Thank you, Lois. I'm assuming it was a coyote. Okay. Joe Ring, please join us.
Hello, Joe
Oh.
Ring from Parktown Bullish Investments, Conservancy Place, 402 Gammon Place, Madison, Wisconsin, 53719. I'm just here in regards to item 10 point. It's 10.1 or 10.2 and 10.3, amended developers agreement and the amended PDP. I believe everything that's been put in front of you from Mark Roffers and staff, explains everything, and really just here when you're discussing, if you have any questions or want
Okay.
more background from me.
So when we get there,
Yeah,
you'll be in the audience to answer questions.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right. I should have read this more carefully. I was reading it over the top of another one, but thank you. Got it. All right, I think that's all of the people who have registered to appear tonight. I thank you all for taking time. It enriches us to hear from everybody. With that, there is no old or no new business, and we'll move to, we'll do presentation of Wisconsin State Senate candidate Sarah Kieski. Gotta watch me tonight, guys.
Point of order. Did we ever do the consent agreement?
The consent agenda?
That's what I meant. Boy, I don't even remember. Never. Shh. No, I didn't. Maybe it's because I didn't make the motion that I don't remember.
All right, we'll settle down over here, guys. Sarah, thank you for being with us. And as you can see, you gotta talk into the mic system.
I will do my best to make sure you can hear me.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to come and speak to your group tonight. I appreciate all the work that all of our employees and our elected officials do in these municipalities. And I'm learning so much as I come to all these meetings and see all the pieces that make our towns tick. So I appreciate all your work. As she said, my name is Sarah Kieski. I am running as a Democratic nominee for the 14th Senate District. For those of you that might be interested in what that looks like now, after the new maps, the new 14th Senate District includes a little bit of Dane County, and so that's with you guys in Windsor, a touch of Madison, most of Columbia County, all of Sauk County, all of Richland County, a bit of Adams, a bit of Juneau, and one little town in Vernon County. So it's a really big district. It has suburban areas and a lot of rural areas. I grew up in Wisconsin. I grew up in Cashton, Wisconsin on a small dairy farm there. And so rural Wisconsin is kind of where my heart is. And that's why I now live in Lodi, Wisconsin. I have a family of 6 kids, and I am a mental health provider. So my background is really oriented around the needs of our mental health, well-being, medical care, obviously. And I see individuals as young as about 14, all the way up in ages. I do individual, family, and couples counseling, and have been doing that for 25 years. I work for a hospital, and I have a private practice in my town of Lodi that I started about 5 years ago, partially because I believe in contributing to my community. Having a small business is part of that. And also making sure that mental health services are affordable and available to everyone to the extent that I can. So that's why I opened my practice there. I also have done one other thing that is a little bit connected to why I'm here today. I have been a real advocate for community building and revitalization. And so I started a nonprofit in 2021 where it was called Lift Lodi, and it was all about community involvement with through volunteering, really just asking people to participate, to volunteer, to care enough about their town of Lodi, and to all come together and uplift the area, refurbish things, and plant trees and paint fences and rake lawns of their neighbors and such. And so we had a wonderful turnout. The first year we had about 200 people that volunteered. The second year we had 250 volunteers. And that really told me that people care about where they live, care about one another, and really being able to bond together was a really important piece for my town. I think it helped all of us. And then subsequently, I was asked, after seeing what I had done with that, to run for office. So I'm here as surprised as maybe anybody would be that I'm here today, because I was not aspiring to be a candidate in politics ever in my whole life. I was really happy with my 6 kids and my business and doing my volunteer work. But I think participating in a civic way right now is incredibly important. And when people asked me to use my skills, to forward my values, and to have the moral compass that I've shown in my town, and to participate as a candidate for elected office, I had to check with my family. Obviously, I had to do some soul searching to make sure that that was something that I felt I could do and do well. And I'm excited now to be running as the Senate candidate for the 14th district. Again, I was asked by my community members to do that. And I have had just such groundswell of support, wanting a unique, needless to say, a mental health provider is a unique perspective to bring into the government. But I think it's a needed one. Oftentimes people tease me and say that I'm going to have a lot of work to do while I'm there. And I say, well, I only can do one job. I will be the senator. And then those that need mental health services will have to find someone. Maybe I can refer to them, but they won't become candidates because that would be too much for me. So again, I'm really glad to be here tonight. I got some questions regarding concerns that you guys are facing. And as I said, I am learning a lot. And one of the things that I love about being a candidate is being able to talk to so many people at different levels, small towns, villages, some cities, and finding out the unique needs of each of the municipalities. And they are pretty varied. There's a theme. Housing is a huge, huge theme. And so I'm going to just share the question that was provided to me, and then just share a couple of thoughts that I have. The question is, the state recently passed a package on affordable housing funding, and this is a good start. Thank you. However, the requirements are very specific, which makes it non-applicable to some communities. We've had a hard time attracting affordable housing developers because the community is desirable and land prices are high. They're being bought out by market rate projects. Since we are a prospering community, we also do not score high for the low income housing tax credit, which most affordable housing developers go to in order to offset costs to create affordable rents. This seems to compound the gap and punishes communities who are doing a good job. Will there be additional opportunities to assist communities that are growing like DeForest? As I've gone around the district, one of the things that I hear at most of the doors is there is not workforce housing available. That's for our young people. That's for our young families. That's for our seniors. That's for people that want to work in the community. And I do see this as an incredible need in really all of our communities, statewide, of course. And so talking to people and trying to gain some understanding about what some of the limitations are, Obviously, we need developers to come in, and if developers are coming in, they want to make a profit, understandably so. So we need to be doing something to incentivize that. We need to maybe make some changes to the requirements of the affordable housing grants so that community like yours, Lodi is very similar. Our land value is really high. And so we don't end up meeting many of the requirements for the workforce housing options of grants. And we really need that too. So trying to think about advocating for some changes to those requirements, making them a little bit more open-ended and taking into consideration these high land value areas. Thinking about other creative options. One of the things that I've heard about is some communities thinking about having the city or the village own the land and then provide that at a perhaps lower cost to families so that they can build on those. And that seems like a reasonable thing to at least consider for different communities. Again, trying to figure out how can we make these options available for a wide variety of people in different socioeconomic strata. The thing that I worry about the most about not having more affordable housing is I know for me, my children, I have 6 of them, like I said, they won't be able to live in the town that I'm in because they won't be able to afford it. So it's breaking up families. And I think that's a big deal. I love my family. I'm sure you all do too. I think everybody that lives in a small community sort of loves that, the atmosphere of that, the values of that, the way that they can thrive in a small community, and having small communities then not have housing that's available for a variety of people, I think makes a big difference in who we have in our communities. And I think we want to be able to have a variety of individuals, again, of ages, of abilities, of socioeconomic strata. I think that gives us a depth and a richness to our communities that's really important. The last thing that I'll add, as I'm going forward into pursuing a position in politics, one of the things that I know well is psychology. But I don't pretend to be an expert on all kinds of other areas that are now before me. And so for me, I'm really oriented towards the idea of seeking out the voices of the people that really know the information, that are experiencing the challenges, that are seeing what their community could benefit from. So I could imagine being surrounded or asking for a group of advisors that were maybe village presidents, mayors, that were able to advise and give me a sense of what are you seeing at the ground level. I don't want to be too far away from ground level. Again, small town, I grew up in a town of about 800 people. So I really like the small town. I really want to understand what's going on at the ground level. While the office would be in Madison, I don't anticipate that that's where I'm going to spend the majority of my time. It's hopefully going to be with constituents and people that know what's happening on the ground level. The second question, what can the state do to help EMS collect from Medicare reimbursement sooner? Well, this was interesting because I didn't know that this is how this works with EMS, and it sounds abhorrent. It sounds like it maybe takes up to a year or so to get, maybe even a bit more to get reimbursed. And I just can't imagine that that's very viable for municipalities when you have salaries to pay and bills to pay. So a thought would be, since Medicare is a federal system, maybe asking that state and federal work together. And so that state could perhaps pay for these bills and reimburse the municipalities. And and then we have a surplus. So how do we use that surplus wisely? Well, perhaps we could do that, making sure that we get paid at the municipal level more readily, and then have the federal and the state government work together for the reimbursement if it came from state. So again, it's just trying to think about how could we do this a little bit better? And it would just be a thought. The next question was, would there ever be consideration for using sales tax as a method to induce more commercial development? Municipalities are limited to using tax increment districts to help businesses grow. But since this is sourced in property taxes, it withholds funding from other jurisdictions and other government services. A local sales tax, TID, quote unquote, may be able to provide the developer the financing it needs while reserving the increased property taxes to the jurisdictions for their government functions. I think overall, giving municipalities more freedom to function a bit more autonomously to figure out what is best for the municipality, how they can best use their funding formulas, how they can best use whatever reimbursements they have. I think that makes the most sense. Again, I don't think we have such disparity between, again, land values, size, population. And so we want to be able to seek out what is going to be a solution for that particular village or town or city versus asking one solution to fit all. So hopefully being able to ask for a bit more creativity so that it's smaller communities can benefit. So probably looking at the funding formula obviously would be really wise, since it sounds like municipalities are just starving because it's been so poorly. Well, it sounds like it's been frozen for a long time. And then the last question. Prior to 2009, the state of Wisconsin provided communities with a cost of living increase and adjusted the formula for funding communities with revenue sharing and levy limits. Many communities and local school districts are experiencing shortfalls and are placing operational referendums in front of local residents. This does not sit well with local residents who see a direct increase in local property taxes. What is your position on this matter? How is the state going to fix this, particularly in light of the state surplus? Again, these questions were very, very well thought out, I think, and I appreciate just the nuances of all the challenges that you all are seeing. I think, again, we need to look at the shared revenue situation in the state. Most services that residents receive are at the municipality level, and so we need to think about how best to serve those. And since we have had it sounds like, again, the funding stuck since about 2010, it probably needs to be revamped quite considerably. And hopefully now that we might have some changes in the legislature because we have new fair maps, we might be able to elect a variety of people from different parties and hopefully have a much more balanced perspective in our legislature to look at some of these other options. I think the idea that many of our municipalities, many of our schools, coming from a public school myself, having to have referendums for just funding of operational costs is just, again, it's despicable. I think it's a disservice to our people. It's a disservice to our communities. And I also think that having property taxes be the way that we do most of our funding just doesn't make a lot of sense. I think it's not diversified enough. And I think it makes people concerned about their property taxes. And we need to diversify again the way that we get some of that funding. And sales tax could be part of that, income tax, et cetera. So those are some thoughts that I have based on the advanced questions you asked. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that others might have for me tonight.
Thank you, Sarah. That was very thorough, and we appreciate that you took all those questions. Other questions for Sarah? We all came up with those questions.
Okay, well done.
All right. We thank you. I know you've got lots of different communities and they all probably have similar or different questions. And so it's a big job, but thanks for taking the time to come and be with us. And we look forward to watching what happens.
Well, thank you again for your time and thank you for paying attention because I know these meetings go long, but I appreciate your time very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks, Matt, for all your coordination. Don't trip there. Yeah, that chair's on wheels. All right. All right, now we're going to go to item 10. Presentation of resolutions and ordinances. Item 10.1, Resolution 2024-062, resolution authorizing the chief of police to execute an agreement with LexisNexis Risk Solutions FL Inc. for sharing of law enforcement data. Chief Olson.
Yeah, this is through our Madison IT with our service agreement we have every year for our records management system. This is, if you remember, a complete year ago when Captain Riedel and myself did the annual report, we talked about a Socrata platform. We showed you crime mapping. Madison IT went away from that because they raised their prices by about $40,000 to $50,000, which would have not directly on us, but it impacted us. They now use LexisNexis, which we've used previously. To be able to use that product, we just need this license or this agreement approved. That's the backstory with it. So there's no cost. The cost is into our records management system already.
Okay. All right, questions for Chief?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. If there's no other comments or questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to 10.2, Resolution 2024-063, resolution approving a second amended and restated master development agreement for Conservancy Place. Bill Chang is the staff on this. It was in your packet. Is there any questions or do you want to make some comments, Bill?
Sure, if you don't mind, I can review with you the generalities of the agreement itself, a little bit of history, and then what's the conclusion of the agreement and what it proposes. So if you remember, currently there is a master development or an amended and restated master development agreement that was approved in 2018. And so since that time, there's been a lot of things that have happened, a lot of development since 2018, a lot of construction since 2018. And so as the village completed construction on River Road and on Windsor Road, we took opportunity to make changes in the scope of the construction to help reduce costs to the overall project. Namely, on River Road is that we did not replace the bridge over the Yahara River. And then for Windsor Road, it was in the agreement, it stated that it needed to be 44 feet wide curb to curb. We did not go that full width. So as part of that, we wanted to ensure that the current agreement met the current conditions, reached out to the Rings and Parktown to have that discussion. They were in agreement that we should be reviewing the agreement itself. And then as part of that discussion, in the changing climate of the market, we initiated discussion about where it was asked of us what we would think about an amendment to the PDP, and that they would seek more units to add to that PDP, primarily so 233 additional units, 200 of which are attached units, and then 33 which would be detached units. In consideration of that, we had asked Parktown if they would be agreeable or amenable to dedicating additional parkland to the village, as we were in the process of identifying additional parkland for mountain biking. and the piece of land that was owned by Parktown, is owned by Parktown, was one of the pieces that met requirements or terrain requirements for a mountain bike special use park. As we went through that, we added language pursuant to those parameters to this development agreement. You'll also see as part of this, and as part of the current agreement, a change from in the method of payment towards road impact fees towards River Road and Windsor Road. The current agreement states that once those projects are completed, that we would then switch to a promissory note arrangement, and that's all specified within this agreement also. I do want to note that we added the legal description in Exhibit A from the document, the PDP document. I've been informed that might be different from the legal description currently, and so we will have to review that. And I ask that if you do motion on this document, that you add that language to provide us the flexibility to amend Exhibit A.
A?
Right.
Okay. All right. And this is one of the items that Joe is here if we have questions of Mr. Ring and Bullish Investments as well. So I would open it up to questions. Rebecca?
Yeah, I'm curious on the very last page of the agreement, that Exhibit C. If you can get to that. Is that the same as what it was in the original agreement, or has that been updated? I'm trying to figure out what this, because that's that corridor that has been contentious.
Yeah, so we'll get into this a little bit in regards to areas in the PDP amendment, which is the next item. This particular map shows what is outlined in red is the East River area that encompasses the 16.7 acres that is pursuant to the agreement would be in exchange for the 233 units. So this piece of land here was in the current PDP being proposed in the next item here. This was slotted for development and is not a part of the Upper Yahara River Trail corridor.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question? Good, thank
That
you.
answered my question. Thank you.
Mr. Simpson?
I have two different questions. Is on Article 2, so I don't know what exhibit it is.
Is it an exhibit or is it the agreement?
Probably the agreement. It's 2.3, Article 2, 2.3.6. Talks about a traffic signal. I guess that's the first I have seen that, and I sort of question the need of a traffic signal at that intersection.
Al's informed me that it's in the existing agreement, that the 2018 agreement, it's a development agreement.
Okay. I just heard, or I thought we stricken different other things. I just thought that could have been something that probably been stricken too. And then the next section, the 2.3.7, I wonder if there's any movement on that, or I'm assuming just down below. About emergency access to the North River area.
Yeah, so that's also, it's highlighted in the current agreement and also in the current PDP. In regards to movement, we've been in discussion with Parktown about what that timeline looks like. But as stated here, that emergency route would be added if any area beyond 1,300 feet of the road right of way is developed. And the idea there is to provide emergency access so that we would have two in case one would be shut down.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
That, I think that answers my question. It's really both those sections sounds like it was in the old one and where it's mainly being carried forward at this point.
This provision was refined a little bit, but essentially what it says is the first 1,300 feet of development can be on a cul-de-sac, which is what we typically allow for temporary cul-de-sacs, I think, anyway.
Right, I think we did that for Chapel Green and other subdivisions too. so.
Anything beyond that, if they develop further east from River Road, then the emergency access would have to be added.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
And
Other question? Oh,
Jim, to answer your point on 2.3.6 and the traffic lights, you know, although it could probably be removed now because the thought is that there would never be, we can't control what future boards, and so there's still 10 years potentially left on this agreement or until it's built out. And so we need on, instead of removing it and adding it in later, it made sense to leave it in at this time.
Right, and if I could just add to that, to me, that's a good provision when there was a chance of, say, River Road continuing south. But now it looks like that potential development land is now pretty solidly a farmstead or something. But I bring it up as far as River Road and innovation. I mean, that might be more prudent for an improvement. I don't necessarily know if it'd be a signal, but something.
Mark Roffers has his hand raised. He may want to address this. Mark, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you. So a couple of years ago now, KL Engineering did a study of River Road for the Village, a traffic study. And in the long term, they suggested that traffic increases may warrant signalization at South Street, at Innovation Drive, and potentially at Windsor Road. So that's part of a long-term forecast. But I wouldn't argue that, you know, it may not be needed for many years.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Glad to know you were there. All right. Any other questions? Did you have your hand up? All right. So if there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Do we want that with that language?
I'm sorry, I forgot that.
I'll second it so we can have discussion.
Okay, then we want to put that language in, the motion to allow staff to review the,
Just property description,
Exhibit A, which is the legal description.
okay.
legal description. Yes.
All right, so is everyone comfortable with that? Jim, you're comfortable? Okay. So we have a motion and a second, and any further discussion? No? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And we will move to item 10.3, ordinance to approve a sixth amended preliminary development plan for the Conservancy Place Planned Unit Development. That's a mouthful. Mark, do you want to make some opening remarks?
Sure. Thank you, Jean. This is the Sixth Amendment to the PDP. The PDP's been in existence as the guiding plan and zoning document for Conservancy Place for over 20 years now. The last amendment was in 2018, and it went alongside that master agreement amendment that Bill referred to earlier. This amendment would handle on the zoning end of things, the authorization for up to 233 additional housing units from what the 2018 PDP allowed, with up to 200 of those being multiple family units. Just a slight nuance. If they didn't want to take all those 200 as multifamily, those could be swapped for single family too. So those are sort of an either or proposition. The PDP amendment, particularly in a map towards the end of the document, also designates that East River area, that's 16.7 acres that was on the screen before, for future park recreation uses. So that basically establishes the zoning for that piece for park, and really only for park. It does also specify, like any other development area within Conservancy Place, that when a detailed plan for recreational use is developed, presumably by the village would have to come before the Planning and Zoning Commission for final development plan approval for that particular recreational improvement. Got to tip your head sideways, but it's sort of in the bottom left part of this map now. Along the way, we were the developer and we, the Rings, we've had an opportunity to kind of look at a few other things that were either completed or not working exactly right within the 2018 PDP. There is nothing of anywhere near the significance of the two things that were already mentioned regarding the units in the park, but they are enumerated in my report, and I can certainly discuss them as needed. What we're asking and what the P&Z has recommended is for the village board to adopt the ordinance in the packet, which would approve the PDP. The only condition would be that the PDP, the effective date of the PDP would be tied to the signing of the master development agreement, because they do work together. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
And do we need that in the motion?
It's already in the ordinance, so you do not need it. Just a simple adoption of the ordinance would be sufficient.
Thank you. Questions for Mark? Rebecca?
So in the memo, that nice colorful map there, can you blow that up a little bit? Is that essentially the same thing as what those were sideways?
Well, it's very closely reflective. This is the comp plan, future land use map from the 2023 comprehensive plan.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, and so when we put that together, we referenced a number of documents, and in this case in place, we looked at the 2018 version of the Conservancy Place preliminary development plan. The
Okay,
reality is that the land uses really haven't changed here. It's really about density change. So the analysis here is basically suggesting that the future land use map and the PDP remain consistent with one another.
So can you go back to the other maps then? I apologize. So which areas are the ones that are being proposed? I mean, I know the one right across from the athletic complex. I know that's already been, I understand that. I'm trying to figure out the other areas that are being proposed for a little bit higher density. I'm trying to get
Sure.
that in my head.
Yeah, if you could go back to that next map, that would be great. So
maybe
yeah,
point two.
the area between the athletic complex, which is the big green blob, that's where the arrow was right now, and Bellflower Point, which is the BJS's latest condo project. That's about 10 acres of land that could accommodate higher density development, an apartment complex, for instance.
Right.
That's the primary area we would anticipate some additional units being located. Other areas that work in terms of the zoning is this area that's designated IS North. It's between ABS's corporate headquarters and the rearing barns on the east side of River Road. It's got, let's see, about 10 developable acres as well. We could see that developing with apartments, condominiums, other forms of attached housing in that area. It's got a nice serene setting near the river, not unlike some of the other condo areas in Conservancy Place. The final area where we might expect housing for sure is the North River area. This was called the Knolls in prior plans. It's the area where the bike path goes through the cornfield right now.
Right.
That area we'd anticipate to be a predominantly, if not entirely, single family housing development, or it would allow and accommodate, a small scale condo development along with that. That's about 96, 97 developable acres. So those are the three remaining areas that we would anticipate, this additional housing allotment to be to eventually land in.
Okay, and then just one final question. Just, I guess, north of the athletic quad, there's those three grade-in areas. Are those being proposed for changes, or are those pretty much the same?
The same, no
Okay.
change.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Jim?
Sorry, I just came up with this on the spot, but I was just thinking about more or less the East River now Park area that's being proposed.
Say that again.
The East River, the location, and right now it's shown as only park. As a.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And I think that's a great change, but I just wonder about like the use. And so like, as it being part of the PDP, that's the zoning document, so it's not necessarily under the village's C1 zoning. So does that add any complications? I just off on the side read what parks are and Conservancy Place on their description, and I feel like we're all okay, but I'm assuming, Mark, you've given it a lot more thought than I have in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, I don't want to get into the whole naming of the C1 district issue, but the C1 district does allow park and recreational uses. And the park zoning district within the PDP leans on the C1 permitted use list for what can be done there.
Yep, and I thought it was a nice add where in the Conservancy Place PDP, it talks about the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan for the guide, at least the East River. I don't necessarily see that mentioned in the other parks, but I'm assuming that probably more or less applies to all parks. It's still being guided, say with the help of Conservancy Places, PDP, through the comprehensive outdoor resort plan too.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jim. So the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, also known as the park and open space plan, is, as you know, currently under development. And that plan will be subject to adoption by the village board. For this particular site that we've called East River in the PDP, there should be some recommendations within the corp. Either options or a more specific idea as to the recreational uses that might go there. And the PDP basically says that those are the uses that the public and everyone else can expect there. So, participate in the corp process, I guess, regarding that, the options for recreation use on the East River area.
Okay. Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you, Mark. You had helpful comments. If there are no other questions, we have a motion and a second on the floor. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. We'll move to 10.4. Resolution 2024. Resolution authorizing the village president and clerk to execute a development agreement with DeForest Acorn LLC for development of a dental office. What did I do?
Jane, I don't mean to interrupt, but could you let me know who made the motion on that, on the ordinance for the preliminary development plan?
Colleen.
Colleen, and then
Jim seconded it.
Okay.
And you got the change to it that allowed for staff to?
Yes.
All right. Are you good? Thank you for pointing that out. I didn't see you asking a question, so. All right, moving on, then dental office, we had information in our packet. Alex, do you want to make any comments before we look at this?
Sure, just really briefly. So First Choice Dental is proposing a new office. I got it up on the map here, the former DOT site on Ball Court. And as part of that, they will be putting in some water, a segment of water main, as well as some sanitary system components. And our ordinance requires a development agreement to be in place with that. So that is what's before you tonight.
And this, for everyone, is the funny little piece of land right by Ball between the roundabouts, kind of. Can't imagine anybody else wanting it. Hello, Rebecca.
Question. Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I'm just wanting to get a little clarification on, well, I guess traffic and parking and how that all works.
So they did have to submit a site plan, and that has been approved. Their final engineering documents have been approved too. That all was approved at a staff level. They met our standard requirements. I probably should have had the site plan in here unless it is an exhibit to the agreement, which is probably not. Oh, sure it is. So you can kind of get a sense of the proposed layout here. So their access would be off of Ball Court, not off of Highway V. So anybody coming in there would have to come north on Ball Court and then enter into their driveway and parking there. So the access itself would be sort of opposite the access that's already over there to the west.
So then the building itself would be back towards, no, take your little arrow
Yep, down here.
right back in that area. Okay, so then the parking would be kind of in front of that.
Yep, which is a nice little site design when you're coming in, when you have visitors coming in off of Highway 51 straight into the village, first thing they see is a nicer dental office rather than cars.
I guess just looking at the map, it didn't look big enough.
Sure.
It doesn't when you go by there, but I'm sure it all fits, so, yeah. Are there questions?
I would move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're beeping. That's not us though, right? Item 10.5, Resolution 2024-065, a resolution approving the purchase of land adjacent to Baki Conservancy for recreational use. Mr. Blau.
Did we update the memo? I think I misstated was it this one or the other one? One of these memos, I misstated the amount of, I typed it wrong. So this is $285,000. We're purchasing the land for 70,000 for the piece that's maybe developed, that would have been developable. And then the 5-acre portion is 215,000. So we're excited for that opportunity to program that.
Yes, Rebecca.
Point of order. Callie, did we have motions or not?
I have that we had a motion for 10.2, and that was Colleen and Jim with the changing to allow the amendment of the legal description. I do not have a motion for item 10.3, the ordinance.
Did. No?
Okay,
I don't
would
believe we
move.
got a motion on that.
I will make that motion.
Voted.
I'll second.
All right, you guys, you're supposed to be monitoring. Sure. All right, so
Let's go through that again.
we didn't have a motion on that? Oh,
Apparently
sure we
not.
did. I'm gonna start making
I
notes.
thought we
again.
did, but
So we have a motion then, excuse us, we'll go back to this and make sure you have one. 10.3. So Rebecca's making a motion. Who's seconding it?
Colleen seconded.
All right, we have a second by Colleen, and we will vote on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, girls. Thank you.
apologize. They were cringing over there and going, We didn't have a motion. I'm like, yeah, we did.
was
I could
pretty-
have sworn we had,
Yeah, I
but,
was pretty sure we did.
but she looked back and she couldn't find where she had it, so.
You listen to it next, when you go back through it and listen and see if you've got two
Yeah.
now. 'Cause-
Otherwise, we're all kind of going half asleep here.
Yeah, I'm sorry if we move too quickly there. It's unusual. All right. Now, we have approved the dental office, right?
That one's done.
And we are on the Conservancy Baki piece.
Motion to approve Conservancy at Baki.
Second.
We have a motion and Bill
Second.
seconded it. If there's any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. It's raining out there. 10.6, resolution approving the purchase of land adjacent to the Yahara River for recreational use.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second note. All those in favor, if there's no other discussion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Oh. All right, are we good now, guys? All right, it takes a village, you know. Communications. They're in your packets, committee, commission, and board reports. We will get some updates here regarding the library. Do you have anything for the library? All right. Do you have anything for public safety, Miss Little?
We just approved our licenses and I think I reported it at the last meeting and we meet again next week, Wednesday.
Okay. Anything from the Community and Senior Center?
You know, I think it's been a couple of meetings, a couple of months since I've said anything about the senior center. So this happened 2 months ago, but I don't think was brought up here. The commission approved an immediate pay raise for 2 tenured employees. And it just was because their pay was getting too close to some of the newer employees and they were very valued and it was implemented right away. And we were told that they both came to tears when they heard that. And then we also approved a bonus for the director and the assistant director because of all the extra work they're having to do regarding this fiscal agreement. And we gave that to them right away also. And of course, they were very happy.
Wonderful. All right. Community Development Authority. Oh, we don't really have anything there. Planning and Zoning Commission. Mr. Simpson?
Yep, we met last week. Many of the things we just had, what? Reject. Riverstone plat, I think that was that's the condos that was approved. I think that was approved Brandy's not here to correct me, but I think it was approved at the planning and zoning level. I'm showing a CSM. For DeForest Yards, there was a revision to those CSMs. Then there was a public hearing to allow for Quick Trip to put some improvements in the wellhead protection overlay district and some other things with Quick Trip, including their CSM and a vacation of the Metro Drive, which we did not do. And then the last thing I have is a change to the future land use map in the village's comprehensive plan, which I believe also came to the village board already.
Okay, good. All right. Public Services Committee, you want to continue, Mr. Simpson?
Yep, we did not have a meeting last month. but Bill just told me I did not report out on the May meeting, which is some things that we've already, again, had at the village board, including the ordinance to amend the preservation and protection of natural areas, which we had a long discussion on. We also talked about the urban wildlife management plan. Greg has a very all-encompassing park trail wayfinding signs in the mix that I'm looking forward to seeing done. And I still owe him some comments and, oh, celebrating International Migratory Bird Day. That's too long ago for me to remember what we talked about, but that was one thing we talked about. That's
I know we have a new duck population coming with the rains, so. All right, DeForest Windsor Fire and EMS District has not a lot new to report. We are looking at how to stretch our budget and we are starting our budget preparation process. And I think that was most of it. Clean, do you remember anything? No, I think that, all right. All right, so there are minutes for the library in your packet. I don't have a lot from DCCVA. And with that, I would entertain a motion to convene into closed session.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Oh, no, can we have a roll call? I wasn't gonna get caught making a mistake again.
Okay, trustee Witherspoon,
Aye.
trustee Allen,
Aye.
trustee Landgraf, trustee Little. Aye. Trustee Simpson,
Aye.
trustee Stefan Hagenhan,
Aye.
President Cahill Wolfgram.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
While they set up, if anybody wants to don't feel bad. They tell me it takes a village, so.
There it is.
All right, now, we are back in closed, no other business.
not out.
I mean, we're back in open, no other business, and I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 8:07 PM.